Hello, this is the chapter reading for the Mesmerist by Luana. Chapter 1. Some days paint the fabric of our souls with happy hues. Good fortune and breathless anticipation are both as bright as spring sunshine. Other days ink their woeful tales in dark lines and shadowed grayscale. This day would stain my soul with both, and something more besides. But I didn't know any of that. Not yet. I didn't see much that day. A pastel slash across a man's neck as he trotted by on a handsome chestnut gelding. A glow of gold nestled beneath a woman's bosom as our cart trundled past. Nothing out of the ordinary. My focus was elsewhere, firmly fixed 2 hours ahead of us, when we would arrive at the palace in Solohia. "Will you stop fidgeting?" Papa sat next to me, the reins clenched in his fist. Papa's nerves were keeping pace with my excitement, both blooming larger the closer we got to the capital. At this rate, we'd both burst before we made it through the gates. "I don't know why you're so anxious about visiting." I smoothed the fabric of my finest dress over my knees for the 10th time. Anything to keep my hands busy. From the sound of Simon's letters, Solohia is a place of wonders. It had been over 6 months since I'd seen my best friend, and I was eager to hear all about his adventures in person. I was certain there were juicy nuggets he couldn't risk sharing via letter. "I'll be damned if I take the word of a starry-eyed 18-year-old dumb enough to volunteer for the army. It's a noble profession and a good living. Plus, Simon was invited to train for the Royal Guard. It's an honor. I'll be double damned if I sit here and receive a lecture from you on the benefits of military service. You forget I had the honor of serving as fodder for 2 years. I mouthed the next part with him, for I knew it was coming. "And not all of me made it back." Papa had lost his right leg to just above the knee in the war against the Vruks of West Adrjssian, just before I'd been born. A burst of red swirled above his head. Double damned indeed. He'd seen my mouth moving. I hurried to head off whatever rebuke was coming. "I'm sorry, Papa. I'm just excited to see the city. I know you think it's dangerous, but it's been years since the war. You can't keep me cooped up forever." "I'll do my damnedest," Papa said under his breath, but I planted a kiss on his weathered cheek, and he pursed his lips to hide a smile. The red dispersed like a vapor in a breeze. Papa had my same walnut hair, though his was mostly gray now, and his disapproving frown buried itself beneath a furry mustache. Guilt flashed through me as quick as lightning, and I was glad I couldn't see my own colors. In his last letter, Simon had said the princess was looking for another companion, and he'd put in a good word for me. I could hardly imagine the Simon with whom I'd climbed trees and thrown snowballs having the ear of the princess, but I wouldn't miss this chance. Papa may have been happy to farm Verbenia in the middle of nowhere, but I wanted more from my life. Adventure and glamour and something. Anything more than a one-room cabin and the monotony of pulling weeds day in, day out. Plus, the palace library was supposed to be the grandest on the continent. If there was an answer to the strange phenomenon coloring my vision, I'd find it there. The cries of the weeping gulls were the first clue we were nearing the capital, and the Vokai sea beyond. When the carriage trundled over a hillside, I surged to my feet, my hands flying to my mouth. A tapestry of green and gold stretched below us, fields ripe with fat grapes and furry with summer wheat. Beyond that, a sprawling city rendered in tan stone, clustered around domes of teal copper and burnished bronze, all leaning down to the shimmering ribbon of the sea, stretching vast and endless. "Sit down or you'll crack your head." Papa grabbed my wrist and forced me down, but he couldn't dim my delight. "It's magnificent." I'd been to the ocean before, when Papa and I had visited the little fishing village of Vruk, half a dozen leagues from our farm, but that view had been nothing like this. "It's a nest of hornets and snakes. An honest man can't turn around without getting bit. Soon the winds will whip up and you won't be able to walk the streets without Adrjssian finding every seam and hole and grasping at them with her icy fingertips. Then winter will fall and the mist will blanket everything. Imagine months of not seeing the sun. That fog has hidden more foul deeds than a man could conceive of." I rolled my eyes. "Simon said everyone weaves tiny bills into their hair, so the entire city is like a tinkling symphony." "A cacophony, more like it. You try getting anything done with those infernal bells ringing non-stop. It's enough to drive a man mad." As we drew nearer to the great oaken gates that funneled into the city, I contented myself to take it all in silently. Papa was a lost cause. Life had soured him beyond hope of rectification. I wouldn't let the same happen to me. My excitement threatened to choke me as we trundled into the city. I fisted my hands in my dress to keep them from shaking. 2 flags fluttered on a tall pole above the city wall. The purple flag of Adrjssian, with the spiny chiton rendered in gold thread in the center like a sunburst, and another beneath, black with an unblinking purple eye embroidered in silver. That second flag meant the king's Mesmer was at court. A declaration and a warning. "Will we see the royal Mesmer?" I asked, though I knew what Papa's reaction would be. "Oh, Viato, help us, I hope not." Papa drew a finger in a horizontal motion across his eyes, a ward against the power of the Mesmers. "Supposedly, that was where the Mesmers discerned your truth. Through your eyes, they could see all the bits of you. Every fevered hope and dream, every buried secret and covetous thought, every lie or crime or wrong. Justice in Adrjssian was total and unyielding. Justice was the Mesmers." The intoxicating scenery of the city quickly captured my attention. We passed glittering fountains and finely wrought temples, bright market squares, and dizzying staircases snaking up the city's steep hills. And then there were the people. Copper-haired Dervo women and silk-clad Losians, and even a Vruk warrior, his wide shoulders swathed in fur and his thick neck wrapped with an iron torque. And swirling around all of them were colors, tangerine and cerulean blue and brown like loamy soil. As they assaulted my senses, I leaned back and let my eyes close. Papa patted my leg. "It takes some getting used to." Up and up we went toward the Ostrov Palace, which perched atop a hill at the height of the city. I could feel Simon growing closer. I was even more eager to talk to him now, to hear everything about the city, the royal family, his training. How many stories he must have from a place like this. At the palace gate, Papa was given directions by a guard in purple and silver livery. "You want to find Jaro, the royal steward. The queen has left special instructions that your cargo be delivered directly to him." Papa thanked him and flicked the reins. "The queen is expecting us?" I asked. The verbena we carried was a medicinal herb. It struck me as odd that the queen would see to it personally. I suppose it was rare. It was the only thing that banished my headaches. I took it daily. Perhaps she had similar need of it. "It's valuable," came Papa's only reply. Our wagon rolled through a shadowed archway into a busy courtyard. Other wagons were being unloaded against the northern wall, and in another corner, lads of perhaps 10 years old sparred in the packed dirt with wooden swords. Out from one open set of doors strode a handsome man in rich clothing with curly brown locks, accompanied by a tall, dark-skinned soldier in purple livery. "Simon!" I squealed. I launched myself off the side of the wagon while it was still moving and flew across the courtyard, throwing myself into his arms. Simon let out a surprised oof. The man laughed. I see you've acquired a dervish." Simon placed me down and pulled back, his big hands resting lightly on my shoulders. His dark eyes looked me up and down with amazement, taking me in. "Jana, look at you." Butterflies stormed in my stomach as I did the same to him. It had been so long since we'd seen each other. Would it still be the same easy way between us? "Look at you!" Simon had always been handsome, as tall as a birch with a lean, muscled form and expressive arching eyebrows. His mother, descended from the elusive Mora clan, had given him dark skin and shining ebony hair that made him stand out even more. But he had grown since I'd last seen him. His face was matured scruff shadowed his angular jaw, and his muscles had filled out under his well-tailored uniform. The palace ladies must have been swooning. "Ahem," A throat cleared, and I startled like a deer, remembering the other man. Simon laughed, and I wanted to melt into him as memories washed over me. A childhood filled with that laugh. Sorry, Georgie, I forgot myself. It was like I'd seen a ghost. A very lovely ghost, Georgie regarded me appraisingly. I had filled out too this year. My figure moving from girlish to something more. I'd worn my newest dress, a light green cotton cinched with a bodice of emerald embroidered with copper leaves. My long brown hair curled loosely about my shoulders. I had wanted to look good for the princess. Adriana, this is Lord Georgie Hristov, cousin to the Princess Nivana. Georgie, this is Adriana. We grew up together. She's like a sister to me. Cousin to the princess. I fumbled my way into a curtsy. It's a pleasure to meet you, my lord, I managed. Lord Georgie was handsome, too. He had the nut-brown skin and bright green eyes of a Dervo clansman. He must have been related to the princess on the queen's side. He also had a dimple in his chin and a smile as bright as a moonbeam. Please, call me Georgie. A smudge of pink twirled above each of his ears. I'd seen it often enough to be able to gauge its meaning. It meant he fancied someone. My stomach swooped like a swallow as I realized who. Me. My cheeks flushed with pleasure. Simon! My father had parked the wagon and crossed the courtyard to join us in slow, uneven steps. He transferred his cane and clapped hands with Simon. You've grown. Welcome, my Orden. It's good to see you. They feed me well here. Simon patted his stomach before introducing Georgie. We need to get our cargo unloaded so we can get back on the road. You'll excuse us, of course? Papa said. My heart sank, but I knew better than to argue with Papa in front of a stranger. You mean to leave so soon? Georgie asked. Surely you'll stay through the feast tonight? Tomorrow would be the Equinox Festival when summer officially turned to autumn. In our village, Dunavar, we celebrated on the day, but perhaps here they reveled on the Equinox's eve. We haven't secured lodging, and it'll be impossible to find during the festival. Papa shook his head. It was always going to be a quick trip. Nonsense! You've come all this way, Georgie protested. Surely a day of rest is in order. Plus, there'll be fine food and dancing tonight. You could stay at the palace as my guest. Wouldn't you like to attend? He asked me. Papa shot me a warning look. I ignored it. This was my chance. I could never vie for the position of the princess's companion if we turned tail and left this very afternoon. Plus, I deserved more time to catch up with Simon. Papa could go straight to the Lord of Winter's hoary frostlands. So I said the words that would change everything. Lord Georgie, we would love to attend. Chapter 2. Simon and Georgie located the royal steward for Papa. Who took delivery of our 4 crates of dried verbena. Georgie stood next to me as Papa negotiated his payment, and Simon directed some servants to help with unloading. My skin prickled with awareness as Georgie eyed me sideways. It's an unusual harvest. Only grows in a few places outside of West Adrjssian. From what I understand, how did your father get into farming verbena? He's been growing it for most of my life, ever since we moved after... I trailed off. No need for him to know that we'd moved after my little sister had drowned in the lake near our old house. Well, since I was 5. Our village borders an outcropping of exposed limestone, which is what the verbena likes. Georgie nodded. And your father only grows for the queen? Yes, she purchases our whole harvest each year. I turned to regard him. Are you so curious about all medicinal herbs, my lord? Like I said, please call me Georgie. He reached over the side of the wagon and pulled loose a sprig that was poking out the side of one of the crates being unloaded. He twirled it in his fingers and then sniffed it. And in my role, I find it wise to know as much as I can about anything as powerful as this little plant. I cocked my head. Powerful? What? Papa appeared at my side, his presence a wedge that drove me a step back from Georgie. The steward has been kind enough to find chambers for us. Shall we go get cleaned up? Simon joined our little circle. I'm sure Navina has a dress you can borrow for tonight. I'll ask her. Navina? He was on a first-name basis with the princess. And what was wrong with the dress I had on? I managed to smile. I would be much obliged. Papa put an arm around my shoulder and shepherded me away. Come, my dear. When we were out of earshot, he added, You've really done it now. Thank you.